Listen, I don't know what Natalie Spooner's middle name actually is, but from henceforth, she shall be known as Natalie. Put some respect on my name, Spooner. My name is Erica El Ayala. I am the founder of Black Rosie Media, which houses At Even Strength, which is our women's hockey podcast. We are here. I am here in Milano, right by the ice rink. This is actually our dining area, and I'm boots on the ground here for the 2026 Winter Olympics. I'm once again joined by Ava Wood, who is the founder of the amazing platform 365 Hockey Girl. She also joins me during the PWHL season on the 206 Sports Collective here at Black Rosie Media to talk about the Seattle Torrent. Now, Natalie Spooner, not a Torrent. She does have some ties to Seattle, though, and went from 13th forward to, in a shutout, 4-0 shutout win, getting the game-winning goal in the opening game for Hockey Canada. Ava, what are your reactions specifically to Spooner?
Yeah, I mean, just to set this up a little bit more, people were saying, why is Natalie Spooner on this roster? They were saying, yeah, I mean, I was one of those people. I'm not going to lie. So you can put that on me. But I think people were questioning a little bit, like, why is she on this roster? But clearly she proved that there's a reason why they brought her there, right? And in a game where, Canada is scoreless through the first period, I mean, obviously they expect to beat this Swiss team, but they're scoreless. They're putting up a lot of shots on goal. Getting that first goal, getting that breakthrough goal, first goal of the tournament for Canada, that's absolutely huge. So really happy for Natalie Spooner.
Yeah, it was absolutely huge. She's the 13th forward, just for some of our peeps that are newer to hockey. So the forward lines are 3 deep. So the first 2 lines are considered your top 6. The second 2 are considered your quote unquote bottom 6. And then there's 13. You have no other people on your line because you're not really a part of a line. You're like a reserve, a floater. And to have someone like Natalie Spooner, who has already won Olympic gold, who was the PWHL inaugural season forward of the year and MVP, to be being coached by her PWHL coach, and be that 13th forward, it wasn't necessarily something I remember. I believe you and I talking around rivalry series and people projecting on even that broadcast that, oh, she's not gonna make the roster. And I was like, in what world, babes? But the Hockey Canada roster has been a little bit puzzling for me in some other ways, but Natalie Spooner was never one of the players, for me at least, that I had any questions about. And I did get to speak to Spooner in the mix zone. I think another thing, Ava, that's worth noting, and I know you were on with Rachel and with Preston, y'all crushed it. I loved the expertise, the back and forth. I think y'all did a great job. But what we, what we know is that the start for Team Canada and Team Finland was delayed because of neurovirus. And I had to look up neurovirus. I'm not going to lie, Ava. It sounds terrible. Its symptoms include violent, was the word that I saw, violent vomiting and diarrhea. First of all, we're going to talk about the delay and what Natalie Spooner had to say about the delay, but let's just talk about violently having effectively an upset stomach and then having to play not just any hockey game, but the biggest hockey games of your career.
Yeah, I can't even imagine that. Not only physically, but also psychologically. As soon as things don't go according to this plan that you've been building up, how do you adjust mentally? And I think that's what also impresses me the most about Finland. Or even coming into a game and knowing, hey, you know what? I'm not at my 100%. How am I going to dig deep here? That's what really impressed me by Finland.
Yeah, I think they did such a great job. We will talk a little bit about Finland, but Canada played Switzerland. So the Finland-Canada game that was scheduled for earlier for Thursday, I believe that was the Thursday game, that's been rescheduled for February 12th. So Finland wasn't forced to take a forfeit, which I think was the right move. Let's see how it works. But that meant, at least for Canada, and this is what we talked to Natalie Spooner about, and those who are subscribed to the Gold Medal Dispatch, you'll get the full mildly edited quotes. So you'll get to hear her as she spoke in the mix zone. We'll have some more edited quotes that will go up on social media. But basically, what she said is that Canada used the game time as their practice time. So they got in an extra practice. But then also, they were already at the arena and they really went through as if they had a game. So, logistics wise, they were prepared. They also were prepared of what it was like to have an evening game. And so, these are some of the things that, from Spooner's perspective, really helped Hockey Canada, Team Canada. That being said, I think you already alluded to it, right? Neither team scored in the first frame, and I do think it was a great sparring match between these two squads. Now, if you look though at the shots on goal, you are probably wondering, and you would be right, how in the world did Canada not score more than 4 goals?
Yeah, I mean, speaking of norovirus, apparently Switzerland's like number one goalie that people expected to start, apparently she had norovirus, right? Because we heard there was that one case of norovirus on Switzerland. So to have Saskia Maurer as the Swiss goalie come in to that situation and face over 50 shots, that was amazing. That was spectacular.
100% against a high octane team like Canada. Now let's just go back and talk about Switzerland, because on the live that you did with Rachel and Preston, they had not played Czechia yet. But Preston in particular talked about Czechia. They had a back-to-back. Switzerland ended up with a back-to-back going into the Canada game, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But Switzerland wins an 8-round shootout overtime game. And then the next game, they get Canada and get, like you said, a 50 shots faced, 50 plus shots faced, and only 4 goals let in by their goaltender that is not even their presumptive number one. Like, that's massive.
Yeah, I mean, this is just absolutely confidence building. I mean, on the broadcast, they kept saying, oh, it must be so like demoralizing to see a shot count that's 50-6 or whatever. And I was like, yeah, I mean, obviously, that's not what Switzerland wants, right? They want to come out there, they want to compete, they want to get shots on goal. But at the same time, is it a confidence builder to say, hey, look, we've been through hell and back. We've been through hell and back. And you only got 4 goals on us, and again, only got 1 goal in the first 2 periods. I think that's actually a huge confidence builder. So to have this game against Czechia back to back, dealing with norovirus, 50 shots, still held them to 4 goals. I mean, things maybe broke down a little bit in the third period, but in 3 of those coming on, the power play.
Right. And we have to talk about special teams here, because another thing that you could say for Switzerland, as far as potentially, if not confidence building, definitely like a hard lesson to have to learn, is that, like you said, there were several power play goals here for Canada, but because Switzerland was in the box a lot, including their young star Ivana Way, who scored in the shootout to give them the win the day before, she had back-to-back boarding penalties. And it was on the second one where Canada was finally able to break through. And that's heartbreaking to lose like that. And I think once you gain some perspective, then you have to be like, this is something that we can fix.
Yeah, I think this is definitely like a game management thing. Another thing I want to point out is like the first 2 calls were like that illegal hit call, right? So that's something that we see in IIHF. And honestly, I think in the Czechia Switzerland game, they were kind of letting them hit more on the boards. And I do think like you do have to play this Canada team physical, right? So I think it's just finding the line there, figuring out the game management with those refs and like, yeah, how to play that specific opponent. So yeah, cleaning up some things there. Like maybe if they didn't take those penalties, maybe even a closer game. So yeah.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what I'm thinking. And Canada had less than 6 minutes on the power play, but a lot of that is because once they were on the power play, they were scoring within the first seconds of the power play. So, like, power, emphasis on power in their power play.
Yeah, and speaking of Natalie Spooner again, I mean, you got to wonder. I need to take a look at their special teams, but did they bring her in specifically so she could activate on a power play? You know, that's another interesting thing.
Yeah, for sure. I did get to speak to Troy Ryan again. We'll have these quotes circulating for you a little bit later, but what he said is like, listen, she's listed right now as our 13th forward, but that's not indicative of what she brings. And he talked also about, Natalie Spooner, I don't know that I've ever seen her in real life, like in person, where she's not smiling. Her eyes are literally just so bright. In color, yes, but also just like they're open, they're bright, they're welcoming, they're fun. She seems like a positive person, or she always brings that positivity. And you could see when she scored, she did like her little bunny hop, and it was like the cutest thing ever.
Yeah, that was so cute.
Yeah, and Troy talked about it. He's like, you saw that celebration. Speaking on her behalf, thought that there was also some emotion behind that. I'm sure it's a tough pill to swallow because she hasn't played this role for Hockey Canada, and at the Olympics. And I like what you said, and it might be something that we can follow up with as the tournament goes on, and as we get more games, and we can see how she is deployed. With Switzerland, again, Ivana Way, she was like, listen, we have to be better. We had so much momentum, so much positivity riding that overtime shootout win where they were losing with several minutes. I think, around 3 or so minutes left in that third period. Czechia was leading by a goal. And so Switzerland gets a late goal to force overtime. No one scores in the overtime period, and then we go to an 8-round shootout. And their young star, she turned 20 now 3 days ago, I believe, 4 days ago. Her and another teammate, February 4th is their birthday. So I asked her about having her 20th birthday here. We talked after the loss, but she said it was amazing to celebrate with family. Of course, icing on the cake to shortly after your 20th birthday get a game-winning goal in an Olympics as such a young star. Laura Stalder, who I also spoke to, and people are subscribe to our gold medal dispatch at the premium subscription or our gold package, you were able to hear that audio. And Laura and Team Switzerland, this is a team that's won Olympic silver before, right? They've been able to take down one of the top two North American teams historically. But we also know that they've slid out of favor as Czechia has come up, as Finland has started to reestablish themselves again. And Sweden unfortunately had a lot of missteps with their federation, but they're trying to show that they can be back in the mix. So it was good for Switzerland to win those games, a tough loss to the Canadians. But this is where we talk about Czechia. And I think there was a line that Rachel said on y'all's podcast where she's like, this is not the Ottawa Charge. But isn't it though? Because that was
no. If it was the Ottawa Charge, they would have got bailed out by their goalie.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair.
But I think I can see where she was going with that though.
I think the loss to Switzerland seems very Ottawa Charge coded to me.
Yeah,
like they had a lead, Yeah,
and
they couldn't hang on.
And that's also what happened in that bronze medal game in the women's worlds in 2025 as well. So it could just be a Team Czechia thing too.
Oh, but they're when they're on and they're playing their best, they're so good. And you're just like, they can literally take on the world. And then I did get to speak to Katarzyna Mrazova after that game. And, she said it's a little bit of us losing focus and taking our foot off the pedal. And you can't afford to do that in an Olympic Games, and not against a team like Switzerland, who they've made it very clear in the pre-Olympics when they're talking in media, from their coach to, again, Laura Stalder, their captain, they are here to compete. They are here to show that they can be a top team and they want to be on the podium. I mean, yes, everyone wants to be on the podium, but it's not just a matter of like they have an air of expectation that that is exactly what they're going to do. And they are not shying away. They're not being humble with respect to that. Now, it's not like they're like, yo, these other teams are trash. No, they're very insular in their confidence. There's a lot of mutual respect, but a part of their confidence is also almost like a sense of urgency in that they know if they don't play their best game, then they cannot accomplish and achieve their goals. And I know that sounds very intuitive, but in practice and to get everyone like one band, one sound to believe that, to execute that is very different. And I think, Ava, just to wrap up with Switzerland and then maybe compare them to Czechia, is that Laura and Alina Mueller, I spoke to them after that shootout win, and they both told me, I was like, okay, like, what did you say ahead of that third goal? And they were like, we didn't say anything. We didn't have to. Everyone knew what they needed to do. There was no, and not even in the positive, like, you got this, girl. Like, they were locked in.
Yeah. Can I just say I'm so excited about the Switzerland team because I think going into this Olympics, people wrote them off a little bit for sure. For sure. I think when people were talking about this group A, they were like, oh yeah, it's gonna be Finland and Czechia and the like for the bronze medal, of course. Well, no, Switzerland just came in, made things very interesting. So I'm really excited about that.
Right. And you say they made things interesting because Czechia, they lose in their opening round. You kind of take that L. They're playing again a North American team, but then to lose to Switzerland, and that is not the issue, right? To your point, people probably underestimated Switzerland, but historically they shouldn't have done that because again, Switzerland has been a top team in the women's division, in the women's Olympic tournament specifically. But it's more that what I just described with Switzerland, I was hearing not the absence of that, but the opposite. So what did I hear from Mrazova? She was saying we took our foot off the gas, we lost focus. Switzerland said we didn't even need to talk about staying focused because everyone came in locked in. And that is, it sounds like sports speak, but it's a vibe. It's like a whole vibe. And like I'm telling you, Switzerland is not here trying to play these games. Like they're gonna have a good time. They're gonna, of course, be respectful and fun for around each other and to their teammates. But like they understand the assignment, Ava.
Yeah, but at the same time, now that this is happening in Czechia, I'm like, okay, so you had that game that where you took your foot off the gas, and now you know, like, right? That's what I kind of like about this group stage. Like, it's really not the end of the world. Like, yeah, it's not ideal. It's going to affect your seating, but like they're going to learn their lesson from this. So I'm excited about Czechia as well.
I mean, but O2 is tough. They have to get a win, and they have to get a win soon because not everyone in Group A is going to move forward. So
no, everybody in Group A is.
Hold on, am I getting? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, you're right. So I'm thinking of the other the boys and how they're doing things. Okay, so but to your point, and thank you for correcting me. Yes, like it's not like. I know I say this all the time. Like, I don't believe really in must-win games until it's literally a must-win game. And you just put yourself in such a better position, obviously, if you can get these wins outright. And Czechia, because they can be an up and down seesaw type of team, I don't worry because they can pull a win out of nowhere, seemingly. But I do worry because they can also play not to lose, which is not the same as playing to win.
Agreed. Czechia needs to beat Finland today.
Yeah, they need to. I mean, again, like what is an actual no, and I'm with you. Like I just know like a lot of people say must win, and I was like, come on, it's not really must win. But then I'm like, okay, Czechia, you might be changing my mind because you kind of have to get one on the board. And I think that's even psychological, right? They want to be able to get a win. So I think it's going to be interesting to see. But like Preston said, getting both of their goaltenders because of the back-to-back. Carla McLeod, who I spoke to, she said that, and that was an opportunity. Not every team, most teams do not deploy multiple goaltenders in an Olympics unless something happens where they have to. Which brings me back to Team Canada. Troy Ryan talked about Anne-Renee Desbiens not dressing. Not the first time. We talked about this in the rivalry series. And so I don't know how much of that is maybe maintenance, as we sometimes hear the boys hockey players talk about. How much of that is just knowing she's a veteran who, a la Switzerland and what we've been talking about, like no words need to be said. She's going to be dialed in. And how much of that is just, giving some of your younger goaltenders. I mean, Mashmeyer's obviously been here, but, with Osborne, is there value if you can do both, getting your presumptive number one some rest where she doesn't even have to do warm-ups, while also preparing a young talent. Not likely that she can get a start, but what if you do need her? We know Mashmeyer, for example, was coming off of an injury. So I think that it worked out. Taking on an opponent like Switzerland, the offense was offensing. So I think that there was some strategy there. And Troy, it sounded like, my interpretation of what he said is that they kind of had an idea of that first game would have been Anne-Renee Desbiens, and that she likely would have had the game 2 off anyway. So they stuck with that plan. Even though she didn't play, ARD didn't play the first game, it sounded to me, and how Troy Ryan spoke to us, that there was a little bit of a plan to give her a day off. And so she got to continue to enjoy that. So I'm curious to see how that's going to play out.
Yeah, I like that plan from Troy Ryan. I like seeing Mashmeyer in net and having Osborne dress, just like you said, like psychologically, mentally for those goalies. And yeah, I know some fans online were a little worried when they didn't see Desbiens, and they were like, is she injured? Is she injured? No, she's not. This was all according to the plan. So
yeah, exactly. And so I think he was just like, yeah, we just decided to stick with it. And I think there's something to that, right? Just the routine. If you've already mapped that out, something. And we did speak to all of the players from Switzerland, or we spoke to players from Switzerland, Finland, and Canada about, the impact of an illness, of a sickness. I think that the players were kind of giving, answers that indicated that they really didn't want to stay focused on that. And for, I think, a few reasons. One, as to not make it an excuse for what's happening on the ice. But two, it's like, they can't really control that. They can only do as much. I mean, we heard Natalie Spooner say, going back to some of our COVID protocol and lots of hand washing, and they have their own space in the Olympic Village. So there's a little bit of distance in that way, and just trying to be smart, being vocal in how they're feeling, taking care of their bodies. So kind of basic things. So it's a part of it. It's not that they're not thinking about it, but they're definitely not, Ava, dwelling on it.
yeah, and that's kind of something I picked up on just in how we talk about the Olympics. There's always going to be these catastrophes, right? Like, is the ice okay? Is the ice okay? Okay, now there's norovirus. Like, there's always something going on. And so I think as media and as somebody who's on social media, it's easy to like catastrophize. So I try to just, stay calm. Let's focus on the hockey. Let's focus on, I don't think the athletes want to dwell on it. So let's just.
Yeah, they absolutely don't want to talk about it. I did talk to Aaron Frankel a little bit, because another thing coming into this game is with the ice proportions are different. Also, I don't know what the right term is because I never played ice hockey, but the term like nails on a chalkboard? That's kind of how it sounds in the ice rink. You're just like, it's like their skates are just crunching through the ice in such an unpleasing way. Like if you've ever gone to a public skate, especially outside, I think you know what the sound is. And it's just like, it's just like this gritty grinding.
Oh.
And I've never been to a pro game where it sounded like that. It's usually like a sharp wow, wow, wow. Here's me applying for roles as a voiceover actor or whatever, because I'm making all of these noises. But I hope this makes sense. Like the sound of the ice sounds very different than what I'm used to when I'm watching high level hockey. And it also, the ice looks dry, like, you know, when they come with the Zamboni and it's still kind of glossy and glassy for the first few minutes of the period. No, it's powder everywhere. And I think some people have already been noticing that it's impacting the passing game. So you have to put a little bit more on your pass to get the pass to where it needs to be.
That is so interesting. That's so interesting.
Yeah, because a lot of snow, it's friction, right? I think that's like basic physics. So it's gonna slow things down. So again, the players are not focused on it. It's just an observation that I have made. But Ava, I know Joe and I, we couldn't hop on the live stream because, you know, logistics at an Olympics. But I want to open up now and switch gears before we get into what the schedule will be upcoming. But like, what questions do you have for me? Like, do you have any burning, dying questions of like what we've been seeing here, like what's going on?
Oh, I want to know what the crowds are like at these games. Like, what fans are there? How loud are they? Like, what are they thinking about the games?
Yeah, that's a great question. I have not yet been to an Italy game for the women's tournament, but word on the street is, and understandably so, that they have the best crowd. And I don't doubt it. The vibes are super high for Team Italy. I mean, they've been able to get some wins here. So I think there's such an interesting story. I found out just I guess as I was preparing to come here, but Laura Fortino, speaking of Hockey Canada, I mean, someone who played for Hockey Canada at the highest level, but has roots to Italy and kind of comes back into international competition to play for, like, you know, her mother country, like her native country and culture. And like, that's such a great story, especially from a North American perspective, to kind of get us tapped into this Italy team, but like Italy is tapped into Team Italy, which is awesome. I've just been assigned different games, so I haven't been able to go to theirs yet, but that's been great. The vibes for the United States are pretty high. I would say for the fans in attendance, my understanding is that there are certain fans that are always shown on the broadcast and referenced on the broadcast that we certainly are not going to necessarily mention here, but that's getting a little exhausting. There have been the Secret Service has definitely made getting around the arena at times a little more difficult. But the Canada game last night, now it was the later game, but it took a little while for everyone to fill and file in. I was a little bit surprised. And they were a little bit more of a subdued crowd, but really into it when they got goals, which was great because they saw 4 of them. But they were a little more tame, not as much cheering like ongoing. But Czechia fans have also been great. The Swiss fans have been great, and kind of really energetic. Not ice hockey related, but I don't think it's surprising to many if you watch Olympics or any international competition that the Netherlands and all of their orange, they are a vibe, okay? Like a whole vibe. So yesterday, obviously Netherlands, they don't play ice hockey. They're not in any of the tournaments, but speed skating is next to the arena that I was at for ice hockey yesterday. And so it was just so, like, all this orange, like, and they have all of these like great outfits. It was fantastic. So that's been great. The vibes have been pretty solid. I think people are still working their way into the tournament though. But today I'm at a different ice arena than where the games were yesterday, because we have the NHL players that are starting to arrive and the teams are starting to practice. So I'm curious to see on a lot of levels how the conversation and the narrative goes both here and for y'all in North America now that the NHL players are here. So are we going to hear more about the crowds? Are we going to hear more about the ice? There have also been things that were quite literally being finished in like the last hour, in the 11th hour, so to speak. Like the arena that I'm at here, when I came just to do some run throughs and to come to practices, it looked very different than what it did for the first games. So yeah.
Wow. They were really cutting it closer. Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel already like almost overwhelmed with how much women's hockey there is, so I can't even imagine what it's going to be like once the men's
I
hockey.
know, I know. All of the hockey. It's everything we always dreamed of. So that's been great. The weather has been a little bit gloomy. So I'm like, oh my God, I'm in Seattle. We've had it rain every day. Not all day, but at least it's been gloomy, overcast every day. Um, the food I okay. This is, I wish I could tell you the name of the place, but also I low key don't know if I want to. But there is a place that does like a nonna style meal. And it's like, I don't know what it used to be, but it's very hole in the wall, very low key, no frills. But the food is so serious. I took the first bite of like a tagliatelle with bolognese, like a ragu, I should say more of. And I literally had to stop because it was so delicious. I couldn't even believe what I was tasting. And it's like, like I grew up around the church. And so, when you, or like a community center or a space where there's always like the basement and then they have the long tables and they put like the plastic, the plastic tablecloths, cloth air quotes. It was definitely like that kind of vibe, but the food, like people would pay so much for the kind of food. And I had like a beef thigh, like the bone in the other day because I wanted to feast. And it was like some rustic raw, but it was so flavorful. The meat was falling right off of the bone. So I have had some authentic Italian food. I've only gone to the spot for the nonnas because once I had that first dish, I really didn't need to go anywhere else. But everything else is me eating at dining halls. So, apparently the caterer for us is US based. So there's that. There's not as much flavor as I would personally like. They kind of try to hit the median or the lower end of flavor, but it's been great. We've been doing some pin sharing. I actually, I I'm trying to think if I have a favorite pin yet, but I can't show my credential, but I can show like some of the pins. This is the hold on, because I have a blurred background right now, but I'll probably show it a little later. But we've done some pin sharing. The Black Rosie Media pin has been a lot of fun to share with people, including with the Edwards family. We gave them a whole family set, so they're good to go.
Oh, that's so cute.
Yeah, but what other questions do you have for me about the experience, or like what it's kind of like to cover an Olympics?
Oh
It's
yeah, I
crazy.
mean, even just about like being in the media area, like who else is there? Who's asking questions? Just yeah, learning about the overall like media ecosystem of covering women's hockey, especially in these like preliminary rounds.
Yeah, it's so different than what we're used to in North America, because like you're used to people who are more traditional media, people who are broadcast, so have like big cameras or like high definition cameras. And then you, of course, have social media people or independent outlets that are maybe using, smaller cameras or even phones to capture video and audio. You can't do that at an Olympics now. So I'll just talk from the Black Rosie Media perspective because I'm working with another outlet. So my personal access is a little bit different, but there's like these levels and tiers of access. I actually have never covered the NBA, but so there's certain outlets that get locker room access, and then there's certain people that only get like podium access and stuff like that. So it's kind of set up that way. You get to talk to the players. They walk through what's called a mix zone. If anyone's familiar with soccer, then you probably see that a lot, where it's like the step and repeat, and the players just walk through this snake of reporters, and we do our best to grab anyone that we can for our story, but you're never guaranteed anything. So it's a little bit different than like the press conferences that we see on the podium. We have to be very mindful when it comes to using video and images that we don't own. The Olympics they don't play about their property and their IP. Understandable, and also it's a little bit tough. Just it's not necessarily the most modern way or how people are used to media being covered. But overall, it's great because I think sometimes when I'm covering sports in North America, the assumption is that if you're at a you're at the arena of the home team, that you only want to speak to them, and so sometimes the road team, you never get them. But it's very equal opportunity here at the Olympics. Obviously there's certain people and players everyone wants to talk to, but it's a great opportunity to maybe talk to a role player in theory, right, and get a different perspective. And so that's what we try to do at Black Rosy Media, is give y'all some of that.
Nice, nice.
Yeah.
That's so interesting.
Yeah. So, what has the experience been like watching back home? I mean, I know y'all talked about the broadcast a little, but like, what are you liking? What are you, as far as even just content from the athletes, are you liking? What are you hoping that you'll continue to see more of? Tell me.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, I think the athletes are doing an amazing job on TikTok. As somebody who makes TikToks, like making TikToks is really hard. Like when done well, it looks easy, it looks natural when you're watching it. But like I feel like these athletes, like that's almost a second job, right? Like they go to the Olympics, you would think like all 100% of their mental energy is just focus on these games. But the reality for a lot of, especially women's athletes, is they have to have this second job of like making content, promoting themselves, promoting their sport. So, yeah, just really impressive to see everything that they've been doing. And then, oh, did you want to add to that? Oh, yeah. And then from just like an American perspective, I think one thing that's been interesting is, I have this Discord, so we can have kind of like a live chat going from the games. And I think that's been something really cool to see, because that was actually an idea I got from PWHL, obviously, because they have the live chat on those YouTube streams. But even seeing the difference between like the Canadian broadcast and the US broadcast, because the commentators are different, the commentary is different. And as from a US perspective, obviously very focused on not just the United States, but definitely obviously mostly focused on the United States, which makes sense. It's a US broadcast, but it's interesting because I think a lot of times when we're used to watching PWHL, a lot of those commentators are Canadian, right? So I think that's a cool difference. I really love AJ Mletsko. I think she's really cool. So yeah, I think the US broadcasts are really fun.
I mean, yeah, I love it. It's the one time in every 4 years that we actually get a US based broadcast, because we don't get it for women's hockey at the international level. Everything pipes through the Canadian channels to that end. Okay, that's really cool. Again, I think from a political perspective, I only am hearing murmurs of how people are feeling. Just you and I have talked about it. We've talked about it on At Even Strength, but there's obviously a lot going on in the United States, conversations that are way overdue, but unfortunately also those conversations overlapping with really serious enforcement of certain things, and communities being really really impacted by kind of how things are happening here. Where I sit, I don't really have to worry about a lot of that, and I'm pretty grateful. But I know other outlets, the main press tribune is kind of right by where I think some of the dignitaries are sitting, and it seems like the Lamoureux twins, of Oops, I Did It Again fame, are a part of the U.S. delegation. I think, going on their track record, on some of the things that they've been outspoken about, that doesn't necessarily surprise me. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I really don't have much else to say about that.
Yeah, I guess for folks that are maybe jumping into this conversation, the context for this is obviously we know like, transphobia, ICE, these are the topics of conversation. These are topics that have come up regarding women's hockey, because women's sports is now a battleground for transphobia. So yeah, women's sports is very political. And I hate, obviously, I love women's hockey, but I hate to see it used in a way to promote hate.
Yeah.
And so it kind of sucks, because obviously this is the biggest stage for women's hockey, but because it's tied to like the United States national team, it does become very political. So obviously
Yeah.
still want to see the United States win gold. I just hope that that isn't turned into a tool for hate.
Yeah, especially because the mind frame of the people that are being profiled at these women's hockey games on a normal regular degular day in the United States are not only inactive when it comes to supporting women's sports. There have been times where they have been harmful and negative and dismissive of women's sports. And so it's always interesting to see when people see the value, air quotes, of women's sports and when they don't. So that's always something I find interesting. Um, yeah.
Sorry, my computer cut out for a little bit.
No, it's all good. It's all good. But let's move on to what we can expect for the rest of the tournament. So there are games today, Ava. I'm going to be focusing on men's hockey today for some of my assignments outside of Black Rosie Media. But I just want to go over what we have. So we have France and Sweden and Czechia and Finland that are on the docket for today. We kind of talked about Czechia, Finland. Czechia, they're about as close to a must win as they're going to be in the preliminary round. France, I think, played a pretty solid game the other night, right, against Japan. That was a back and forth game. Both of those games, France, Japan, and Switzerland, Czechia, were pretty solid back and forth games. But I don't know. I don't know what we're going to see, or if they're going to be able to keep up with, a Sweden team who, in theory, should be able probably to take this one.
Yeah, I mean, I'm really excited about this Sweden team because I think going into this tournament, I was starting discussion of, okay, do we like the Group A, Group B format? Some people were saying, oh, I think it's more fair for France not having to necessarily play Canada or the United States. But honestly, after seeing this, now I'm like, well, is it fair that Sweden doesn't get to play Canada or the United States? Because I think Sweden has been really dominant in this group. So I think maybe shifting your perspective from maybe the lowest ranked teams to the top ranked teams, it's like, hey, yeah, that maybe not fair to that sixth place team. So I think it's cool to see, honestly, how great Sweden has been so far in this tournament. And they're definitely making a case for, hey, look, we should be in Group A. But then at the same time, you say, well, Switzerland is doing a great job. Even Czechia, they shouldn't be in Group B. So, yeah, I am excited for the new format. But, yeah, I'm also excited for this matchup in particular.
Yeah, I think it's going to be great. If we look at the IIHF website, they have the standings in this Olympic tournament. And to your point, Sweden is leading that group. Similarly, the United States is leading Group A. Canada gets their first win, but they have a game in hand, and obviously so does Finland. So I think you're right. I think Germany is another team, right, that I'm curious to see how they fare in that Group B. Here we go. You can see it a little better there in that Group B. And, again, Italia already have a win in the books, and the vibes are so high. They're so good.
I think people are sleeping on Italy.
I think so too.
100%.
I absolutely. 100% to your point. They are absolutely sleeping on Italy. And let's just take a look at the schedule for Monday, because we're going to get to see that Team Italy go head to head again. And I think you're right. The host nation can always be a toss up when it's not a nation that's known for winning medals. Well, we're talking specifically about ice hockey, but I think that Italy, they just are having a lot of fun. They definitely have the crowd behind them, and they are going to take on a Japan team that for several cycles, the question was, can Japan score? And then they got some scoring, and it was like, can Japan defend? Can they keep up with the skating style? And I think we're starting to see them get a little bit of everything. And that makes it really exciting for Japan here. And I think that's going to be a really good test for Italy. Germany, France. Germany, has one win, so they're going to look to keep it going. We know they have some players that are familiar names in the PWHL. So I think that's going to be an interesting one to watch. France is a solid team, but there's definitely still on the come up, is what I would say, Ava.
Yeah, I agree. I really want to watch more of this Germany team too as well, because I think I could be sleeping on them.
100%. And then it's Switzerland. They had a great super high win, and then they go right into taking on a Canadian team. And I thought it was really interesting because I spoke to both the Canadian players and the Swiss players about that first period, because it was a back and forth. We already talked about, I mean, they got heroics in net from their goaltender, who again is their second. But I do wonder if Switzerland, not coming on a back-to-back, not having to manage the super high emotions, and then kind of figure out a way to kind of package or curb that when taking on a team like Canada. But oh wait, Ava, then they go into taking on the United States. So it's going to be a physical, fast game. Do you think, from what you saw in a Switzerland team that was not very disciplined when it comes to penalties, do you think you saw enough for them to at least play another 20 minutes where they can keep the United States off the board in the same way that they did Canada?
Well, honestly, I think United States is better at getting under your skin than Team Canada. So I think it will be a challenge for Switzerland to stay disciplined. I think, Switzerland, I want Switzerland to score a goal on the United States. I don't know if that's going to be possible, but I want that to happen. And then on the flip side for the United States, like, I think what was making people nervous about Canada is they were like putting up all the shots on goal, not really breaking through. I think if United States can make a statement and kind of even get a more convincing win than Canada did, I don't know. I think that would be a confidence builder for the United States as well.
I agree. So if we look at, because the games are happening today, but let's look ahead to tomorrow, Ava. What's your match to watch?
Well, it would be too basic to say the United States game. I'm definitely going to watch that one, but I think the Japan versus Italy game will also be really interesting, because I think Japan is a team that's a little underestimated, just in terms of, I hear a lot of the narrative I hear from people in general is like, okay, well, Japan just can't be that good because of their size. And I really don't agree with that, because, well, we know that there's a lot of amazing women's hockey players that aren't big. Like, imagine a team just that's all Kendall Coyne-Schofield. Like, you're not beating that team. So I hate to see the narrative like, oh, they're small, like there's no way they could be like the best team. Well, I think at that point you use your size to advantage and you develop a different style of play. And we've seen this Japan team be physical. We saw that against France. So yeah, I'm really excited about that. And then, yeah, like I said, people are also underestimating Italy based on, Italy was training in Canada and they seem very cohesive, very skilled. So I think that's going to be a good matchup.
Yeah, I agree with you on all fronts. And I don't think it's too basic. One, because we are both from the United States, but also because I think there's just a level of intrigue here for me twofold. One is Switzerland, because they grind out that win against Czechia after losing and being down a goal late in the game to then get through, an 8-round OT or shootout with the win. So there's that. And they have some grit, they have some gutsiness. Then there's what they did against Canada. And again, those penalties in theory should be preventable. Were they too juiced up after an 8-round shootout win? Were they tired? Because when you have, I say this all the time, the boarding penalties, I think, is just getting used to how the game is going to be called. And you mentioned it earlier, right? Like, are we seeing consistency? Maybe not when it comes to the tournament so far, but everyone's feeling each other out. But also, there're just certain penalties that you can't take, especially not back to back against a team like Canada. So I do think that Switzerland will obviously put themselves in a better position if they can really be more disciplined and not get in the penalty box so much. So they have to play smart there. And do they have enough on the attack to be able to counter the United States. I don't think we've really had to see. I'll put it this way. I don't know that I really understand the strength of the United States blue line in having to truly push people out of their zone. They have not had to operate. The blue liners are operating as facilitators to the offense, and not true defenders. And so I don't know if Switzerland is the team to challenge them in that way. But if I'm Switzerland, I want to at least try.
Yeah, and that's a great point. And to what you were saying earlier, like United States cannot afford to take their foot off the gas. They absolutely cannot. So yeah, I think honestly the challenge for United States is sticking to their systems and just saying this is the level we're playing and make sure to bring that every single game as well. So
Yep.
I'm excited for that as well.
100%. I love that you called that back, because that's exactly what we're hearing from the United States. We talked about how there's so much young blood on this team, or I should say first time Olympians. And I mean, Haley Skamura has been one of my favorite stories for the national team. And this US team trusts her. We talked about Spooner and her being the 13th forward. Skamura is no one's top of the game plan, top of the scout, right? That's not the type of role that she plays. But the fact that, and I think you made a video about this, right? The fact that she was able to score twice in such close succession is because she hunts the puck. And that to me, and we spoke to Hilary Knight about this, is that, everyone knows this is her last Olympics, but we are seeing young players and role players step up. Coach John, he said something. I'm going to have to pull the quote. I don't have it right now, but he kind of said something, and the PR person was like, why would you say that about Skamura? Because he was like, she's not anyone's first choice for a national team or something. He alluded to something like that. And I can see like how someone might be like, whoa, are we throwing shade at Skamura? And I didn't take it as shade. It's true. Remember, Haley Skamura came to the national team and is now a 2-time Olympian because she played in a domestic league. She was not a part of a development pipeline. She wasn't on the radar until she was scouted for what she was able to do against people who are Olympians in a domestic league. And that league and that team specifically that she played for was the Buffalo Beauts. So we're not even talking PWHL. I think people sometimes, it's easy to forget that a lot of these women have come across each other in previous pro leagues, overseas pro leagues, not to mention NCAA and youth hockey. So the scout on how to try and stop certain players is out. You either do or you don't. You either stop MPP or you try to stop everybody else. So when you have a Skamura, when you have a Taylor Heisey or Tessa Janicki, you need to watch her game, because she's doing the hard things. She's getting the blocked the shots blocked in front, or blocking shots in front. She's collecting the puck on block shots. She's moving the puck to get Skamura those goals. That's what makes the difference in tournaments like this, because everyone else is heavily scouted. So how do your role players step up and become the goal scorers? Because then now you have to scout for everyone, not just Hilary Knight, not just Alex Carpenter, who, oh, by the way, has back-to-back opening goals, because Carpy's going to do Carpy things. But again, I just think that's the beauty of Skamura, Taylor Heisey, and her Olympic debut. Again, I really like what Janicki has been able to do. So those are the kinds of players, not just for the United States, but especially with this United States squad, that I'm watching to see how they really step up. So Coach John said something to me the other day, and I thought this was such a great insight. He said, we didn't build this team for people who are at their peak. And even if we feel that athletically they're at their peak, then that means what they're bringing is unmatched leadership. And the combination there of having young talent that's not yet at their height and the peak of their international and pro career, with people who, again, have made 3, 4, 5 Olympic cycles, maybe not really elevating their game. And I mean this respectfully, because at some point, like, how many other things can you learn? you're not really learning more at a certain time. You're refining it. You're becoming more lethal. That's what I'm trying to say. It's not that, they can't be any better. They can't learn necessarily too much more. It's just about how they execute. And I thought that was really interesting from Coach John, because I think it's going to show that it has the potential to be the reason why the United States separates from the rest of the fields, including in Group A.
That is extremely interesting to hear the coach speak about that, because I think that just comes to the biggest difference between Team Canada and the US. It's all about the coaching philosophy, right?
100%.
And that's not to say that Team Canada doesn't have these first-time Olympians and doesn't have players that haven't reached their peak. It's just that the US has more of them. So.
Right. And intentionally matched them and blended them. So you have Megan Keller and Layla Edwards on a line together. You have
blowing my mind still. That's the best thing in this team. I'm sorry. I'm loving it.
And I spoke to Megan Keller about Layla Edwards, and check out Olympics.com for one of my co-authored stories. But I asked her about this moving from forward to D, which I didn't realize Layla initiated that. There was a lot of conversation on this is how she's going to make the Olympic team. No, Layla initiated that. Coach John confirmed that the U.S. was scouting her as a forward, and she opted to move to D. But talking to Megan Keller, she's just she's a phenomenal player. She's the kind of player, I'm summarizing what Keller said, but we do have the quotes again, especially for those of you in the Gold Medal Dispatch. You probably have already heard this, but what Keller was effectively saying is there are times where she finds herself watching Layla. That's how captivating her game is.
Wow, that's so cool.
Right?
Cool.
So you have the Edwards, the Heiseys, of course, Abby Murphy, we know what she can do. These players are coming up, and there's the baby vets, as I call them. So Keller's definitely a baby vet. I think, Kayla Barnes is on the back end of her baby vet years, but it's just so fascinating how, and I feel like we've talked about this, right? That scaffolding approach, whereas not as much of that for Canada. It's a lot of getting the same kind of expertise, and that has its own values. It kind of goes back to what we talked about with Switzerland. No words need to be said. You just do the job. Even Natalie Spooner, she wasn't complaining, or at least not in our scrum, about being the 13th forward. And who cares? Because she goes down as the game-winning goal scorer because Canada did not relent a goal to Switzerland. So she got the first goal, and that was the game winner. So she still knows she can perform at that level. So I know we were kind of joking, for the entertainment of it all, revenge, 13th to game winner. And I think, that's the fun part of just being able to grab attention. And I do think it's a similarly calculated move, like you said, and especially we have to keep eyes on if she is that X factor for this Canadian team on special teams, the power play in particular. All right, Ava, we know we have some games happening today and a great slate for Monday tomorrow. You do phenomenal work wrapping this up in your own fun way. Okay, go ahead.
Wait, I have one more thing to say, which is about Julia Gosling.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe it, especially because I was expecting for us to have some more people, so I didn't want to go totally Seattle Torrent on it, but you're absolutely right. I'm so glad you reminded me. Yes, let's talk Julia Gosling.
Yeah, because we were just saying, Canada isn't trusting their young players. Well, you know who they are giving a shot? Julia Gosling. And
period.
Well, first of all, Julia Gosling, first Olympics, she already got her first goal. So congratulations to her. And them trusting her up on that top line. I think I'm really excited to see how that develops, because this is something we even saw with Laura Stacey, Marie-Philippe Poulain, Abby Rock in Montreal Victoire. I think after that first game of trying that line together, some people were like, oh, is this really going to work? And then it was the next game, switch was flipped, and it was okay, this is it, guys. So I'm really excited to see how Julia Gosling just develops through this tournament.
No, I love that you brought that up. I just missed getting a chance to talk to her in the scrum after the game yesterday, but we're going to get Julia Gosling. I did get to catch up with Hannah Bilka, who, that Seattle Torrent line is together and crushing it. I mean, Carpi is already 2 goals in. But those have been assisted by Keller and Edwards. So that top line with that top D pair is really lethal. And I mean, it's just the way, it's like the blueprint for how the United States wants to play. But that's why the punch that you get from Heisey, the punch that you get lower, air quotes, lower in the lineup from Skamura is what it's like, oh my gosh, like you thought you survived the wave, and then another one comes, and then another one comes, and then, oh wait, the big wave comes back. Like, it's just insane. So there's a lot of gamesmanship that I think we're going to start to see later in the tournament, but absolutely love to see Julia Gosling. Daryl Watts also scores, of course. I've been pretty excited about her game and what she can bring to Hockey Canada, yes, but I think also she's kind of holding it down for the Toronto Scepters in a lot of ways. Had a little bit of an injury, was out for a wee bit, but is back. And I can't even believe that I forgot to do this. Didn't officially score, but Sarah Nurse being back on this squad and being healthy in time for these Olympics, huge. Sophie Jakes making her Olympic debut. For the first time ever, yesterday, we had multiple Black women playing in the women's ice hockey tournament, because it's only ever been Sarah Nurse prior to these Olympics, either on her own team or as a part of the Olympic slate overall. So I think that's also a huge storyline that we're keeping up with at Black Rosie Media.
Yeah, it's a huge storyline. It should honestly be bigger, because I think we're always talking about the first, and then after the first we act, oh, congrats, we did it. Hockey's integrated now, and it's like, okay, guys, like, so really awesome to see Sophie Jakes in that lineup as well.
100%, and more to come. High stick for Sarah Nurse in that first period. It was very clearly a high stick. I was like, there's no way. But hopefully there's more to come, because she crushed it in Beijing while also being asked to play a very specific role, which had her go from center to wing to, middle of the pack to the top line. And I talked to her, and she said, that's what I want to do again. Like, whatever it takes for us to win gold, that's what I'm doing. So we've got a lot of motivated Olympians. It's going to get spicy on this crunchy ice. But for Ava Wood, I want to make sure you get hello. Give us a shout. Who's your friend, and where can folks find you?
Oh, this is Hero. And yeah, you can find me on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube at 365_hockeygirl. And I also have a newsletter / blog now, link in my social bios.
Yes, I've been loving getting your daily recaps on that. And of course, this is a Black Rosie Media show at Even Strength, where we talk women's ice hockey. My name is Ava Ayala. I'm the founder of Black Rosie Media here in Milano, covering for Olympics.com. So go check out our articles over there. But also we have Joe Dabney, who is leading the charge and getting the content, #content for us at Black Rosie Media. And that is in our newsletter, the Gold Medal Dispatch. So we are going to give you audio from the mix zone, talking to some of your favorite players and talking about key moments at these Olympic Games. So you're not going to want to miss it. But thank you, as always, for tuning in here on our live stream. We are planning to do something for tomorrow, so just stay tuned. If you're not already subscribed, go ahead and subscribe. And if you hit the notification bell, then anytime we have something scheduled and when we go live, you will get an update. But for Ava Wood, I am Erica L. Ayala, and we thank you for joining us. Until next time, I will do what I usually do on our Seattle shows. A reminder, be kind to yourself, especially at these Olympic Games. They're stressful for all of us, especially those of us here, for the players dealing with some of the illnesses that we talked about. So be kind to yourself, be gracious and kind, and extend that kindness when you're able to others. Let's hold fast. Let's stay true. And I'm rooting for everyone Black and everyone with Seattle ties, unapologetically. All right. Peace out, everybody.